how do you test your requests, your API with Postman? So do you do collections like this, and you group them? You have the get in the beginning, you run them, you check that it runs, then you take some IDs from here, you maybe do some parameters, and then you run another request. What if I told you there's a way to make all of this process more visual? Don't believe me? Stick around to find out how to do it. What I'm talking about is Postman Flows. So flows, if you do not have flows right here, you just need to do new and then flows. And flows are, well, a visual way in Postman to see the flow or the workflow in an API. So in this video, we're going to have a look at how we can use flows and what we can do with flows. So as I said, if you do not have flows right here in your menu, you just need to do new and flows, and then you have flows added. Now, before we start, or when you start, you get a couple of customization options. So you can add information here. Let's just add, I don't know, raster test, like, sub, and some exclamation marks. And those texts will be added once we start to do our flows. Now, from the starting point, we can, like it says, click and drag to add new blocks. So we can either click from here and we will see all of the blocks that are available to us, or we can go right here and do block or plus block. And again, we have an overview of all of the blocks. If we do not know what we want, we can just do something like, I know, request, and it will filter the list for us. And we actually just want in the beginning to start and send a request. So we select this send request, we link it with our start, and let's add a request. We make this one smaller so that we can focus, and we fit it here. So in the send request, how or what requests can we add? Well, you can add the requests from different collections that you have in your workspace. I have an empty collection, so I can add nothing from here. And I have a collection with some requests for the RESTful Booker API. If you do not know the RESTful Booker API, it's a really nice API which you can use for testing that manages bookings. I will post a link in the description so that you can explore it. So the most simple thing that we can do is just say get bookings, and we just selected that and it automatically adds the get bookings. Now, if we want to give it a try to see if it works, we just do run, and it ran, but we don't really know at the moment. Did it succeed? Did it fail? I mean, if we hover with the mouse, we see that it actually seems to have succeeded. But to be sure, we can go here and we just say something like log, and here as well, and then we run it again. And now we see we have the flow going to the log. And what is this log? Well, this refers to the console from Postman. So let's just run it, and we will see once it reaches the log, it will log the successful response into our console. If you do not want to use the logs from here, you can always do view and then show Postman console. Now we can customize this log entry. So no, this one is failure, so we do it a little bit more reddish, and this one we do it green. If we run it, we see that it went on the green path. Seems nice. We can, of course, do multiple requests at the same time, so we can actually do another send request. You can call the same request again if we want. So we have get request 2 times. On the first part, we log it into the console, and let's try something different for the second part. So let's actually show what we have. And how can we show this? So if I type view, it says output. And what does this output do? It displays any data received and forwards it to the other blocks. So let's do output. And for the failure, let's try output as well. And if we run it right now, this is interesting. So let's run it again. So it seems now our request has failed. And why does it fail? So in order to see why this fails, we need to actually go into our collection for the get bookings, run it, and this one passes. Okay, let's run this one again and see. Okay, now it passes as well. One thing to note about the RESTful Booker API, it does reset from time to time. So if while you're testing you get this false positive, just have another look and make sure that this is not due to the reset. And also for the output, as we could do for the log, we can just go ahead, and here we have a couple more options. So let's just change this one, request OK. And we can also change the color, and here we say request failed, and we can again change the color. Now, what we have been doing so far is we saw that we can add a lot. We saw that we can see what's happening, but this doesn't really change much in regards to the normal way of doing things in Postman. I mean, it does give you a better feel, it does give you a better view, you see what's happening, you seem to have more control. But let's try and link things a little bit together. So we can just select all of the flow elements or flow blocks that we used, and we can just delete them. And let's try something different. So we want to add again a new block, and we do again send request. But in this one, instead of getting data, we want to post data. So we want to create a booking. So let's run this, and let's do output on both of them. So on success and on fail, and see what happens. So we have a request that passed, which is perfect. And let's do something with our output. So we can still have the output here, but let's evaluate. So let's actually do an extra check on what we have right here. So what I mean by an extra check, so if we go to block, if I want to, like I said, I want to evaluate something. and just add an evaluate block. And if this succeeds, I'm just going to link it to the success as well. And let's run it. So my evaluate part is red because I didn't give it any expression, but I can add an expression to evaluate right here. Now there's a way to make this. So I added, as you saw, I added the block, and then I linked the block to the success. If I would do it differently, so from success to an evaluate, you saw, or you can see right here that in value I have enter path. And what does this mean, or what does this do? Well, this kind of a trick, or yeah, a trick or a hint on how to use the evaluate more customizable or in a better way. I now get to choose the value that I want to evaluate based on the response that I have from the request. So let's try, let's say first name, and let's just change this one to name. And I want to do something. So I have two options right here. So either I type it myself and I do name, and I see here my name equals test. I do name equals test. And if I run it, it is true. If you do not believe me, I can open the body here in the output, and the first name is test. If I do name equals rester and I run it, we will see that this is false. Now, I said we have two options. The first option is to type it ourselves, but in case we do not know what we want to do, we can just delete this, and we have here like a magic filler. So this is still in alpha testing at the time of making this video, but it will get better in the future. So what do I want to do? Well, I want to actually compare or check value of variable. And I do generate, and this would normally generate me the code that I need to be able to check the value. Now, this doesn't seem to be the right code, but I do have an extra tip for you. If you go to snippets and you scroll here, you can see, check if two strings are equal. Okay, we can do that, but we can maybe delete this block. We replace this string 1 with the name, and for string 2 we just say test, and we run it again. And I did here a mistake because I'm comparing name to string 2, which string 2 doesn't exist, and just to string 1. So I'm actually now evaluating correctly. Perfect. But let's do things a little bit more complex if you want. So what I want to show you now, let me just remove the outputs and leave only the evaluation right here. So I want to perform, or I want to show you how you can perform the following. You create a booking, and then we get make another request right here. As you can see, when I add another block, and I have used blocks before, I get the recently used blocks at the top. So let's do send request, and I want to get the information for the booking via an ID. And as you can see, this one differs from the one above. Why? Because I have a variable in here. And why do I have a variable? Well, if you go to collections, for me, I did a small change, and when I get booking by ID, the ID is a variable. And it has an initial value for me at the moment. I set it up for testing, but I want in the flow to do actually the following. So I want to create a booking, and then, so on the first hand, I will evaluate certain parameters from my request, but on the other hand, I want to send a request that will take the booking ID that from the booking that just created and use it in this request right here. Now it recognizes that ID is a variable, and I can choose to add data here. So I can choose, for example, to add some text, and if I run it right now, this one should fail, and it's responded with status code 400, like a bad request, because this is not what it's expecting. If I were to delete that and add a number, and what did I give it here? I think it was 1056. Okay, so if I do 1056 and rerun it, then this one succeeds. But I do not want it to check this static 556. I want it to do, so let's delete this and say I want a variable. Now I have no variables, as you can see. It needs to select a couple of variables. So from the block, I can just do variable. So let's see, how can we create variable? And let's do this here, variable 1. Okay, and now I can use variable 1 right here. Now what I need also to do is to give a value, because if I run this right now, value 1 or variable 1 is empty. So value 1 has absolutely no value. Run it again. So no success, no failure. But let's do the following. Let's add here, right? So we want here to, we'll go to the snippet because we want to make sure, assign a value to a variable. Now it overrid the previous code that I had, no worries. And I want to do the following. So I want to, but for that I need to do some changes. So I want to assign to variable 1, and let's just do here variable 1 so that it's correct. I want to assign, I can do actually assign name, but that will be incorrect. So let's try this, see what happens. So we run it, and it didn't really like this. Why didn't it like this? Well, because it wasn't on the one hand connected. So we connect it now. Let's see now. Okay. Expected end of expression got something else. So I think it's due to the semicolon. And perfect. You see the variable 1 now equals test, and since it now has a value, it was used here. Now let's just change this a little bit from name to ID, and we change it here in booking. So let's see, can we have in our booking, do we have a booking ID? Perfect. And we do this ID right here, and it changed. It magically changed. Now if we run this, so let's see, did it run? And it ran. Let me show you that it ran correctly. We just add here an output and another output right here, and we run it, and we should get the information of our booking, of the booking that we created. Now what would happen if for some reason I would change the information in my collection? So don't want to have first name test, or I still want to have test, and let's do raster. Let's change the price to 1,500, which would be the number of likes I would like for this video. I can keep dreaming, but yeah, why not? So what do you think will happen if I now run this? Will I still get first name test and last name Brown and the old price, or will I get a new price? Write in the comments. 3, 2, 1. Now let's run it. And I have the new information. That's very important to keep in mind. So if I would have had here an evaluate, so if I would have evaluated the last name to be Brown, and I would have had here Brown, then since I changed the collection, it has an automatic impact on the flow. Now there are a couple of other blocks that you can add. So you can add if blocks and they're pretty similar to what we saw before. So or the success or in the success or failure part, or you can add for and repeat loops. Now, depending on the number of likes and the number of views for this video, I will or will not make another video for flows, but I hope that I have stirred your curiosity and your appetite for flows, and I would like you to give it a try. Write me either in the comments or privately what you thought about flows. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one, and bye bye.